Welcome everyone. June 27th to June 28th. June 28th, Saturday morning in US and evening or late night, in fact, almost night in the in India. And Nithya, Sethi, Gagandepp saying Ankita Menon. Welcome all of you. This is all about life challenges. I feel like the challenges are there in life because there is contrast. There's a lot of contrast in the way we think, the way we live, what we are. That is where the challenges come from. And we are in the challenge, right? In the challenge, it's like you can't see your own eye. You can see it in the mirror, but we can't see our own eye, right? Nithya says we can't see our own face. We have an image of our face, but not we can't see our face. Exactly like that, when we are deep in the challenge, we can't see the real problem. So this is where we are coming in and then saying that let's step out of it, see what all challenges we face, and then we are going to sort out and give a little bit of solution. So this is the idea. Coming to the questions are going to be all based on different categories of ages. Okay. So I'll start the little PowerPoint just to give an image, just to make it little easy and fun instead of making it too serious. Challenges. Oh my God, we have to think serious. Too serious. Sunita, you have to say something. So these are the different generations, and we have Generation X, and also silent generation is almost gone, but baby boomers and millennials, Generation Z. I don't know if you notice this or not, but I feel like the new generation is very confident. They're totally fearless. And I observed this. This is my observation. What kind of differences do you see between the generations? And what is your thought on it? Or again, I was talking about the contrast, right? What there is contrast. What is your take on it? Simple take. Let's not jump into questions. What is your perspective on different generations? Sunita, you want to start?
Yes. Yeah, sure. I mean, Nithya, please go ahead. I mean, he's the right person to address this, and I would have something to add to it. Nithya.
What sort of generation gap?
I guess, yeah. I mean, I guess you could look at it like that. Somehow, the way my brain works, I tend to find commonalities more than differences, and I mean, of course, there are differences. There's no doubt about it. But my experience is that we are all suffering, yeah, in our own ways. Suffering is a big word, but we are all feeling a little out of alignment one way or the other. And my mind is more interested in what are the commonalities in that. And so it's basically resisting our experience in one way or the other, or holding on to some idea of how my life should be, or how I should be, you should be, the world should be. And that's really at the root of it. And then each generation will also have its own set of values. Maybe that's one difference that you can definitely find. And we are conditioned to see things in a certain way. And so more traditional values versus more, go-getter kind of values. So I right now don't have anything very super insightful to offer. Just the way my brain works. But even when teenagers come to me, of course I understand they have the unique problems compared to what their parents had. But for me, the basic thing that's leading to those problems is still the root of the mind is still the same. And I don't see it as, okay, I have to work with this teenager now. It's got to be something totally different from the work with this grandparent now. And I tend to see oneness in things more than the separation, without denying the separation.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
After all, we are all humans with the same matter and same energy. Right?
Yeah.
Anybody else?
You know what? Yeah, Nalini. You know what I feel? We all start life with missing the first chapter and starting from the second chapter. The first chapter has not been introduced to any of us, and that is the most important chapter. Because the first chapter roots us to our psychic ability, our intuitive ability, our intelligence, which is the larger intelligence. We are right away plugged into the mind and the doings of the mind. And the first chapter of life is where you are told that who you really are. So if that was introduced in that early, between 0 to, I would say, 12 years of age, then life would start in a different way completely. But if we have started learning from the second chapter, we are searching for that first chapter throughout. Where is the start? Where is the start? You know, we keep on going and we keep on going until we start meeting people like Nithya, Shanti, who, you know, create a wipeout, create a whole agendaless thing that he does, marvelous things that he does. So for me, yeah, that whole first chapter is missing. And that's why this whole difference in all the generations, which will continue unless something is done about it early on.
Well said. Gagandeep ji, Ankita, anything you'd like to add? Do you see the difference?
Yeah, I see the difference, and of course, I would want to go over similarities because at the end, you have to stay positive and you have to believe in the goodness of life and the connection that we have with people. And at the end, you have to be clinging to something which is positive, right? But the differences these days have popped in so much because I believe that there's a lot of these kids and especially people of my age, even like I'm 28 right now, but the crisis that I see in my generation is as equivalent and as wide as anybody who is 16 or 17 right now, because everybody, so this age of our parents who were thinking that there should be a set timing for everything, is an ideal life. So you have to conform to a particular age to do this and then get married and then have babies and this and then this and this. So they, the idea for them was the value system and belief that they had were very confining, and they had this ideal role to play. But now when life has become more individualistic and everybody is trying to find out who they really are and what good they can do other than just being doctors, engineers, or whatever their parents are trying to tell them to do. So they're finding a lot of disconnect with what was offered to them before. And now to find out themselves, which, Sita rightly said that, the disconnect, the chapter one is missing. The chapter one has been always missing. It's just that the initial generations, they couldn't find to that idea. But now we are those rebels, who would want to find everything on internet, thanks to Google. But, everything is available and I don't need my dad or my mom to tell me, what is puberty or what are other issues and what are relationships. I can find out if I can figure out my life. So at the end, finding yourself and then still, like you said, that there's the confidence, but I would say that there's the confidence comes with a paradox. I mean, this is something which I feel, because I feel a lot of confident people who are from the inside, they don't know, like their lives are becoming hollow. And to tell them that stay positive, they say, what is positivity that you keep talking about? Like, give us the real mantra of what is this positivity? Like, we can't be like, saints. We have to enjoy our lives. We have to be everybody around, enjoy this life and still stay positive. It's very difficult because the materiality of this world is so much that kids and people of our generation find it difficult to connect with the real oneness. That's the problem of this generation, I would say.
Gagandeep, do you
Yeah,
want to add something? Yeah.
sure. Very briefly, since I work with a lot of PSU organizations and do training on managing millennials effectively. So there is this one program which I run for one of the largest oil sector companies in India. And the entire program series is called that millennials are nothing but a bomb. So handle them with aplomb. And the management theory for this goes that essentially the term bomb is an acronym where B stands from the base from which they have originated out of, the era of, let's say, 80s, 90s. O is the options that they have today at their hand. M is what the market offers, the market value. And then the last B is more of the courage, the boldness which they have acquired because of their entire surroundings. So I hope I'm not going tangential because I'm going to present a corporate view of how to make the best of it. So we generally encourage all the major corporations to recognize the difference, respect it because of this bomb factor. I'm going to explain all of them in a very brief one-liner. And then the message that we try to give to the senior or to the middle management is that essentially you cannot expect them to be similar to you. You also shouldn't strive to actually transform yourself to become completely like them. The idea is to amalgamate in such a confluence where you are able to produce synergy for the organization. And the key factor here, probably I like to say, is two things: the base and the options. The base simply means that there is always a default mode where we are. So suppose our grandparents were used to a universe where probably, let me take a number for the sake of it, 100 rupees a month was a reasonable, sufficient amount of earning to have basic food, have basic survival, ensure that, of course, they're rarely, unfortunately, in certain parts of India where I hail from, in the Haryana Delhi belt, electricity was a luxury about 50 years back. So that was the sort of base around them. Then came probably the generation of our parents. I'm assuming more or less, give or take a few years, we are of similar age bracket, probably, excluding Nithya and Ankita, they definitely look younger. So then when that generation came, it was more about trying to build on that survival to prosperity. So probably the era of 80s, 90s, or even let's say early 2000s, when our parents were at the peak, was the era where probably that generation X was too busy lifting that 100 to probably 10,000. I'm just saying that as a notional number. But the millennial, like my daughter is 22 years old. She's just passed out of Delhi University and joined Ernst & Young now. So that generation, if we roughly, she's actually post-millennial in the very technical definition. She's 1999 born. For this era of students who are probably now early level corporates, the biggest thing is that financial prosperity for a vast majority is already a given. If you are an average Delhiite, your parents would have typically bought 1 or 2 flats. And I'm sorry, I'm making the whole grand talk in a very narrow contextual perspective over here. So please accept my apologies for that in advance. So these are students who probably actually don't have to work in order to lead a very luxurious life. In my 22 years of job as CEO at Mitsubishi, I've probably done enough that my children, then their children, then they could feed with great amount of comfort. So this urban generation that we see, and I'm confining myself to that, has been built on a base where what they are going to do will not be dictated by the needs of safety or survival or the need to ascend to that pedestal of prosperity, but something which will be an experience which could give them either challenge, pleasure, or as we say in Maslow's 5th hierarchy, self-esteem. Therefore, the message that I will like to generally convey to whichever audience you are eventually going to pass it on is that it's absolutely imperative to realize that, and I'm confining to, let's say, Generation X versus the millennials, they are quite apart in the way they look at life, residual life, options, grooming, base, and their needs. So therefore, their behavior is also going to be very different, and it is therefore very important for the two not to try to be too much similar to each other, but try to coalesce in a manner that they can create value. It could apply in families. So I used to be a very obedient child, always saying, yes, Papa. Even today, I am 46 years old right now and going to be 47 in another, about 20 days. So we live in a big house over here, an enjoyed family. And I really would open my mouth in front of my dad, except for a very friendly, benign chat. But my daughter, my twin boys. So it's like Raj Kapoor of Kal Aajkal, sandwiched between the two generations. So the success is in trying to accept, probably as a sandwich generation, that how your father of 80 years old versus your daughter of 22 years old are going to have different expectations. And then the keyword, the one single keyword for everywhere, which is the core of my workshops everywhere, is self-transformation. Amalgamate to the surroundings and then you can make the best of it. So always ask yourself 3 questions. What is it which we were probably doing wrong and we should stop it today? The second question, what is it that we were not doing till today but we should start doing? And the final question, what one competency should we add ourselves? So whenever I train CXOs, I tell them that in the future world, you must have one competency a quarter to add on your resume. Sorry, that's my corporatized answer. And
Wonderful, Gagandeep ji. Adding to that sandwich part, just want to say I was also a very obedient kid. And at that time, when I was growing up, I was told that there is male and there is female, nothing else. Please don't laugh. But now I see LGBTQ, right? There's so many. Just yesterday or day before, I came across something called drag race. Anybody heard of drag race? You should look up on Google drag race. What are they?
okay,
If you Google the images, you will see it's actually a person, usually male, who uses drag clothing and makeup to imitate and often exaggerate female gender. And this is for performance mostly. And the way they look is like a cartoon with all the beautiful makeup and hair has come to life. You should see them. It's something that is really totally something for your eyes, a unique thing. Yeah? So this is what we have, something unique, something different that new generation is ready to come up with, and they're enjoying it. They are not afraid of coming out with that. And when I was talking this about this with my daughter, she was like, "Don't you accept them?" I'm like, "It's not about accepting. First of all, give me some time to absorb." Right? There is so much contrast coming to everything, summing up, coming to one thing. I think there is a lot of contrast, but again, at the same time, the baseline is common. As Nithya said, we all are looking for solutions, happiness, peace, and something more than what we already have. I don't know if you would agree that with that, Nithya.
No, there's a nice saying that when the question is in the room, the answer is in the room. So your question was there, and Gagandeep was there to give a nice, smashing answer to it. With all the precise ways in which the differences are there. Very beautiful. Thank you, Gagandeep. You spoke from your own experience as well. Beautiful.
thank you, sir, for your kind words. And then,
These are Charlie Mackesy's sayings. He has very nice, simple drawings and also quotes and conversations between a horse and a boy and fox also. So this is what we have. What do you want to be when you grow up? And the boy says kind. It really moved me. Right? New generation is looking for something, and we also can set a target, like Gagandeep said. So coming to the next one, do you remember these days, olden days? I would like you to give me something fun. Any childhood memory that you have, something funny or cute or that transformed you or that left a mark on you? Because we all don't know much about each other. I bet people enjoy stories and people like to know about stories. And even we all, right? We all like to know stories from each other. Anything that you have. I can pause if you want.
No, I'm ready to go. There's this, what is it called? That little seed that flies in the air. It's got these, it's almost got a kind of fluff around it. And what is it called?
Dandelions?
Yeah,
Dandelions?
it's not exactly dandelion. In the US, you have dandelions. I guess here it's more like a little seed with a kind of a fluff, like a white puff on top. So it just kind of floats around. Anyway,
Okay.
so that seed, I used to be fascinated by those seeds, and I used to really follow them wherever they'd fly. And I used to try to imagine myself sitting inside the seed as the captain of that seed. That inside that little seed is a whole control system. And I'm inside that seed and I'm flying it left and I'm flying it right. So when you ask me for a childhood memory, so just remembering how imaginative I guess we all were before we were told, like constantly being fed information all the time through screens and everything, and how rich and also I used to read a lot. I was very much of an avid reader. I had, I think even before I was 18, I must have read a few thousand books, right? So that whole sense of reading and imagining and having, finding a rich inner world, I used to find my answers through just thinking and through reading. Yeah.
Nithya.
Anybody?
My childhood memory goes to me being the question bank of tell me why. I think the book started after me, I would say. Tell me why. And these were not the questions which would be like on things. These were questions on heart and mind, and probably I had that spiritual incline early on. I would not settle on any of the religious systems that were in place. that my family would follow. And whatever they would do, I would not be too comfortable around it. And I would ask a question. Why do you pray? Why do you fast? Why do you read? Why do you get up in the morning? What are you getting out of it? Where does this take you? So in fact, I was a naughty kind too. Once I had my exams and I hadn't done well, especially in mathematics. So, not believing in something and yet wanting a good result. So I come to my mom and I tell her, I didn't do well, but looks like you have a belief in your system. So can your belief system tell me whether I'll pass? Look at me. And she had her little book, and in the book there was something which she had to turn her hand around with a pencil, and whatever letter it falls on will give the answer. So because of that unconditional love that parents have, my mom said, oh, you're going to pass. And guess what? I failed. So that was like a nailing point in understanding that we have to continue to self-evaluate, self-investigate, self-study, self-explore, self-generate, self-motivate, self-inspire. That was for me the seed that Nithya talks about. My why was the seed for me. And that took me a long way, and I'm very, very pleased by it that I had questions to which answers kept coming. So even I learned early on, Nithya, that questions are important. It's okay to question. I used to have questions and not answers. So I started my own search, my own kiddie search. First it was, let me ask this person, that person, and I would never get it from anybody until I really went in my own head. So I was going into other people's head. I said, this is not working for me. And then I went into my own head and I'm never out of it now, rather. That's where So that's my story.
Okay. Ankita, Gagandepp.
Yeah, so I have a lot of stories, both good and bad. I don't know where to start and how to end. I changed around 7 schools for 10 classes, and it was completely like whenever my parents used to change their locations, whenever they used to get new jobs and everything. So I used to just go to the the same district, to the different districts, and change my schools. And I used to be in contact with quite a lot of my friends until I found out that there's too much schools and too much information for me, and I cannot hold on to all of the experiences. But yeah, I remember the funny part is that I remember I was just 4 or 5 years old and I had just joined school. It was really exciting kind of a time when my maths teacher, she asked me, if I give you 5 pencils and I take 3 from you, how many are left with you? And I was like, 5. And she's like, how are you doing this kind of maths? I was like, no, I'm not gonna give you. So she
Oh.
just, broke it out this news to my mother, and she was like, what a naughty kid you have got. But then, ever since then, I think childhood plays a very important role in what you become. So very small instances of, enjoying rain with your parents, uh, playing favorite music of your grandfather. I saw this TV, and all I got reminded of was how there was this song by the name Boohe Baria. So whenever it used to be played on screen, I used to go downstairs. We had 2 TVs. One was, on the first floor, and one was on the ground floor. I used to run like crazy and switch on the TV for him and play that, song. He used to cherish it so much. So these small little things which made me closer to nature, closer to affection, and all those things that even I do right now, like working with women or children or water or rains. So it's all my childhood. So that is how I've become what I have become.
That's cute.
Yeah.
I have a little story of mine. I think I was like 4 or 5 years old. I was really, really little, young, and I looked at my palm and I looked at the lines. I was just looking at myself and maybe self-appreciating. And I said, these lines, when do they form? And I was just playing with my palms, and I saw that these lines might have formed because babies hold their fist like this when they are in mother's womb, right? And when we are
Uh,
also, these lines are forming again the same way. So that showed me that there is something about our body that we can learn if we go deep into and connect to. And that is when I started looking into it. From that time, I started looking into biology. And here I am. The path has led to biology professor. That is how I came here. The interest which started then, it never went away. It never faded. That's where this is where I'm led to. So anything that you would like to add, Gagandeep ji? Something, your observation that led to what you are, or anything?
Yeah, so again, my story, which I'm going to share here, is something which is slightly darker. This happened in '84. As you all know, there was a huge Sikh massacre. And so we used to stay at Balinagar, and my nani used to stay at Rajouri Garden. So on that fateful night, since I'm the only child, it was three of us, me, mom, dad. So we went to our nani's house at Rajouri. And that's the time when suddenly when we were leaving, they were still early days, and we were leaving after dinner at about 7:30, and a jeep started passing around Rajouri colony ki 144 section has been implemented, so everybody. So that gory, grotesque, ghastly feeling was very shocking. And then for the next 3-4 days, what unleashed was a reign of terror. Whatever happened, I'm not going to go into whatever that, but what me as a child, I was about 10 years old then, was experiencing was every time when there'll be a mass calling, mob aa gaya, mob aa gaya, mob aa gaya. So our next door neighbor, Mr. Malhotra, my nani's next door neighbor, I was a 10-year-old boy with a younger cousin, 7 years old, and a younger cousin sister, 4 years old. Being the only child, 10 years, borderline, I don't know, I couldn't pick up arms for self-defense, but my mom was very particular. No, Rinku, you go in that storeroom and you hide in the wheat box over there. So we used to be hidden whenever the rumor would come, ki mob aa gaya, mob aa gaya. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm using Hindi if it means mob is approaching. So we would be quickly accosted to that house of our neighbor, Mr. Keemti Lal Malhotra, and we would hide over there for an hour or so and then come back. Now, being the only child, I was extremely attached to my parents. So my father, along with a group of people, they were from different ideologies across really a secular mess, not just from any particular religion. They were defending that entire Rajouri Garden block. That phase of about a week or so, and so many deaths happened, so many uncles and everybody were lost, made me extremely fearful about losing my parents. And being the only child around that period, 84, 85, I became very fearful of losing them. So then the mission became that since life itself is so ephemeral and we are all here for but a short sojourn, being the only child became a divine duty to do everything possible to make their life happy. And then what I started doing was that, of course, I started focusing on academics. And what happened, that shocking phase of life, which was an eye-opener and everything, in some sense inspired me, because my mother said to me one fine day that what has happened has happened. These are dark past and everybody has some. She told me her stories of partition when they have moved from there, and probably they were still babies, but at least their parents used to narrate them. So it brought in me a spirit that probably life anyway is something which is not a thing you can take for granted. So you need to fight back at every stage. And I started giving that extra bit, essentially in academics. And I would like to narrate a small instance which happened much later when I was in my teenage preparing for IIM Ahmedabad. So the motto which my mother had told me, it's only through adversity that greatness or excellence is born. So I just started utilizing those lessons in my academics, even in 11th and 12th. I was an all India CBSE topper in 1991. And then when I was preparing for IIM Ahmedabad, the way I prepared was the CAT, as you may know, is a very tough test. We were having some renovation in the house, so I would go and I would sit at the terrace where on one end marble cutters are cutting, and that marble machine, when it cuts the marbles, that era of 94, the white color marble butch workhouses were in vogue. So we had about 30, 40 people working, and I would put sort of cotton buds in my ears and prepare for the test, like right from, it was October, November, so gentle, lazy fall days of Delhi, till late in the evening when it started to become a bit nippy, and I would come down. And eventually, with the blessing of God, I did attain success. So the way those dark and tough challenges shaped me was that it became inevitable that someday we would fall. And of course, we are born, so we would fall. But then what is it that we can do in between to make a difference that counts? So those fears, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's Nalini's magic that I'm confessing such a thing. I rarely share those days with anybody. And here I am talking on a recorded conversation with Nalini, whom I'm meeting for the first time ever. The point that I would like to give to your audience is that, yes, once we are born, we will eventually perish one day and we'll have our dark days. And those dark days will shape us up in some manner. But it's not about how badly we fall, but what we can learn and rise up from that. And what has happened today in our family that we are very brutally divided in 3 silos. We have my father, a gentleman of about 80 who has seen partition, then who has seen 84 and so many things. So he's extremely nervous and sensitive about future secular divides. More of the, let's say, recent religious intolerant ideology, if I may use that word. So with his 3-time heart surgery, with his blood pressures, he still gets very passionate whenever he hears some of the RSS ideology, and he talks about we should do something about it. I don't know what can he do about it. You can't just pluck 20% of the people out of the nation. You can't go back to 47 anymore. Me, probably more of survival instincts, so more of economic focus and trying to see how we can survive and be economically prosperous. And my daughter, like Ankita. Of course, she's not in JNU though. She passed out from Delhi University, but extremely left end of liberal. 3 of us, every night when we dine together, it's 1 hour of Hejula royal rumble between the 3 of us, predominantly between my father and my daughter, and me trying to act as a mediator and looking at more pragmatic ways. So probably when I am now sharing this story with you or with your audience, the message which I like to share is that all of us would have certain good memories and certain bad memories. The thing I like to say as a motivational speaker to all is that what will happen to us to a certain extent is beyond our control. There are externalities, you may call them divine or just fatalism or just destiny. But how do we absorb them and transform ourselves to make our darkest moments our most enlightening moments is something in our hand? And then that's when we start this journey of transformation and make our future a happier one. So I have tried to convert that one of the darkest and scariest moments of mine today to make it my strength or my shield, like that Captain America of Avengers movie, that no matter what, if I have survived that, I will survive anything come on me. That's my thought on childhood. A bit dark, but I thought it may give some light from darkness.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much. That was an honor. And childhood memories definitely have an impact and shape us the way we become in teenage. I'll pause it here. So yeah, we start with childhood memories, and those memories continue into teenage. But when it comes to teenage years, there's so much going on. I don't know if you can recall if it was the same thing with you. I bet many teenagers feel this. There's lots of change going on in their career, in their viewpoint. What they are looking at is not the same. They say that it is due to hormones. There's so many things, and their career is very important. Their education, so many things going on, right? So coming to the teenage years part, nowadays there are teenagers who have many things at hand, especially with this what do you call smartphone technology, right? And touch phones, they have everything at the tip of their fingers. And there's too many distractions. I feel like they are more distracted than our generation when we had lesser distraction, which is your phones and technology. So you have any suggestions for them, or do you say that bring it on and go with that? What do you say? Would you like to reflect? Sunita, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. So I have 2 kids who are not teenagers anymore, they're older. And I have a bunch of friends of my kids who are into, maybe teenagers and a bit older than in their 20s and in their early 30s. So, in today's time, technology is primal, technology is necessary, and technology is useful. So I would definitely recommend to use the most and the best, because technology is shaping them up. It's making careers for them. It's making life for them. And in a way, today life is nothing but a good career. So with that mindset, technology is prime and superior. But there is a second side to it. The flip side is, just a career is not the goal of life, which is happiness, right? For everyone, the goal of life is to be happy, to be at peace, to be content, to be unharmed, to be at ease. So it is important to know that even though you may have the best career, yet if you were to ask the question in the middle of the night, how much am I happy today? If the answer comes to no, then everything is useless then. So to put everything in use, there has to be a balance. So I think I would add to the teenagers that use what you have, but at the same time, don't overlook the bigger picture. The bigger picture of life is happiness doesn't come from outside. It will ultimately come only from within. So there is a technology within also. Find your inner engineering, I would tell them, and I think that is actually the most important technology, right? So I have a something very nice to share here. So I went with my friends 2 days back into a cemetery where there is a labyrinth. I went to walk on a labyrinth, and this was my second time. I've been there once before and I went again. So a labyrinth is basically a structure which is not a maze, because it is quite clearly defined. You walk in only one way and you come out also very clearly. It's very clearly defined. And on that same day when I came back home, and we walked, it's like a walking meditation to me, because we are all into all this yoga and meditation thing. So we walked and we came back, and when I came back and I sat, I happened to watch a small video which Nalini had shared on our WhatsApp chat group. And in that video, they showed the side. It was like an animation of a man's brain, like the head was open and I could see the brain. The brain picture coincidentally looked just like the labyrinth. The picture, the way it was designed looked just like the labyrinth. And then I understood that there is clarity in the brain too. Just like the labyrinth has clarity to clearly walk in and clearly walk out, so does our brain, so does our mind. But why do we lose that clarity? When do we lose that clarity? So for everyone to retain and to connect to that clarity is very important, I feel, at any stage of life. And then life is fun. Then live as long. If you live 2 days, fun, very nice, fantastic. If you live 100 years, even better. That's what I think. The missing link has to be taken care of.
Yeah. Anybody? Nithya, you want to start?
Nothing's coming right now. It will come at some point. Let the others go. Ankita, you want to go?
In the meantime, think about the skin secret, okay? And share with us.
Skin secret.
Why you look younger?
Who's your skin secret or my skin secret?
See, now you solved it already. Gagandepp.
Yeah, basically I do certain counselings for senior students, again at the transition phase from schooling to college. So I typically work with lots of schools of Delhi on late adolescence management. So my mantra, which I tell to everybody, comes essentially from a phrase which I coined called "Do not dare, deal with care." So I strongly believe in the philosophy of which Khalil Gibran wrote in 1923 in The Prophet, when he said that your children are not your children. They're the sons and daughters of nature's love for itself. They come through you, but not from you. So you may give them your love, care, affection, but not your thoughts, because thoughts they have of their own. And it would be against the divine to venture into that. So when I go for my counseling, I always give them one example about the Avengers series, which again, thanks to my twin boys, they are still relatively young, so I have had the pleasure of watching it with them. I ask a quiz. And I structure in such a way that there are 3 categories of questions. First question is, which is your child's favorite game? Question 1A. 1B, have you sort of ever bothered to know what is your child's favorite stage or score in that? And 1C, do you play that game with your child? Or what's your score in that? Then second is the serial. What is your child's favorite serial? It could be Doraemon, it could be Shin Chin, it could be any manga series or whatever. Do you enjoy watching it? Do you know what is your child's favorite character and what's the storyline? And then finally, the third question comes is, who's your child's inspiration? Why is that? Do you also tend to idolize that, sort of encourage your child in doing that? And the point here, Nalini, is that in most of the adolescence counseling which I have been engaged over the last so many years, and the project which I did with Manila University in Philippines, the big finding was that the way the parents tend to associate with the adolescent child leaves an absolutely awesome impact on how the child will evolve. Because for 22 years as a HR director, my mission was, what are the virtues which help a student evolve into a great corporate leader who can be a CXO? And two relations stood out of paramount significance. One was the class teacher, typically in class 7th, 8th, 9th. That relationship of just about middle adolescence plays a big role. And second is the parental bond. So when I have parent counseling sessions, I ask them a question that if they have seen Avenger, there is a scene where Thanos says that I am inevitable. Similarly, in today's modern time, for post-millennial, or as you said, the further generation whose name has still probably not been coined, there are several inevitables. Social media, technology, iPhone, Facebook, YouTube, Netflix. And I tell them that do not fear the day when your child by mistake presses XXX and something wrong comes on Google just inadvertently. But do fear the day when your child, instead of when sees that XXX on the Google as an inadvertent, innocent mistake, goes to his or her best friend, Mohan, Radha, Sita, Sham, and does not come to you. So my view on this is that quite I'm aligning with what Sunita ji said, that technology to a very great extent is inevitable. The greatest millionaires, billionaires will come. I am taking so many programs at IIMs. So when I train those IIM students to go into big consultancy firms like McKinsey, BCG, Bain, when we make their profile there, how naturally conversant they are with technology is a very big part. So I am fundamentally very much in favor of technology. All my three children, my 22-year-old daughter, my twin boys, 12 years old, they have their YouTube channels. They make recordings, post every day. So the point which I like to say as a broad metamorphical philosophy over here is that the child blending harmoniously with technology is an inevitable. What though is a serious matter of concern is that gradual distancing between parents and children. So when the child reaches, let's say about 13, 14, 15 and thereon, it's absolutely of insuperable pertinence over here that the parents must have friendship with the child. The child would somewhere, through somehow, some person, technology, get to know things which child is not probably mentally prepared to receive. Technology is but just one medium. At that juncture, would the child eventually take the recourse to some outsider or to you as a parent is the big fact. So I always say fear the day, not when the child actually finds those clips are there on the internet so easily available, but the day when instead of rushing to you, the child goes outside. So I have designed my own counseling theory, which I said, which is called Do Not Dare, Deal with Care. So it's all about friendship, alliance, is my broad idea. But yes, it has to be seen in a more narrower context of how do we make sure that the medical ailments which are coming out of technology's abuse could be curtailed, which again is to a very great extent parental tolerance. Me, my dad, to whom I don't say much, and my daughter, who is ready to say a lot, an extreme leftist, a centrist, and a radical right wing on the same dinner table, having fun for 2 hours every night. It comes back to that.
I like the sandwich phrase.
Oh, I love Raj Kapoor now. When I used to see that movie Kal Aajkal, it was a movie of 70s when I was born. And I said, man, come on. Raj Kapoor is a prime minister. He's the big power. How come he has to be so feeble in front of his father, played by Prithviraj Kapoor, and his son, played by Randhir Kapoor? Trust me. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਾ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਸਰਗਾਂ ਚ ਵਾਸਾ ਹੋਏ ਵਿਚਾਰੇ ਦੀ ਰੂਹ ਦਾ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਰੱਬ ਨੂੰ ਲੰਬੀ ਉਮਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਉਹਦੀ ਰੂਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਚਰਨਾਂ ਚ ਰੱਖੇ. Now, I cannot help empathize that, my goodness, Raj Kapoor ji, how amazingly awesome you were when you made that movie. I am like you, not able to probably read. The entire paradigm is different. And here my children are, Papa, this is not the way. How could you think like that? I say, yes, sir, here also. And yes, sir, here also. So that's the secret of self-transformation.
Yeah. So we can nudge them. Don't give them a guide map to walk on it fully, but at least we can nudge them. That is what I believe,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, be a facilitator. Stop being a role model. I mean, that's my biggest point. When I go to schools, I just tell that the era when Gandhiji used to philosophize that be a role model, they will do as they see you doing. That era is probably again something that has gone. They will do what they think is prudent, but yes, you will become a reference point. So you walking the talk will definitely have a salutary effect. There's no gainsaying that paramount fact over here. These are some of the thoughts on managing the adolescents. That's an area I interviewed more than 22,000 corporate professionals in Philippines. I mean, based in Philippines. They were across nationalities, and these two relationships, class teacher of 7th, 8th, 9th, and the relationship with parents played a very big role in what they eventually became. So that's the message I'm trying to spread here. Yeah.
Ankita, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just adding on to that, I think the whole thing, drops down to communication and expression. Like, if you're not, I mean, obviously you love, your kids, but the fact of the matter that you're not being able to express that you love them, and you're not able to communicate to them that yes, like ये कहते हैं माँ बाप की गालें घियो की नालियाँ, it's not that, like kids, everybody wants to be appreciated these days. Nobody wants to hear any bad words because the bad vibe is already there in the whole lifestyle we are in. Like there are a lot of judgments, and there are a lot of issues that everybody is dealing with each day. So if you're able to communicate your children, specifically your teenage children, that we are there and we love you, and just because we say you bad words or we keep हम डांटते रहते हैं, तो इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि हम तुमसे प्यार नहीं करते. तो वो idea जब तक उनको नहीं दिखेगा, they would never find a friend in you. I've seen many kids, see many teenagers who have so many issues to the extent that they would want to go up to internet and search, for Yahoo Messengers or online friends or strangers meetup. There are so many websites that we don't even know. As parents, we don't even know what the kids are up to, and it's so easily accessible. So we are over here trying to frown and own them, while they actually just want to be heard and experiment with their changes that are happening in their body, either in the form of hormones or in the form of sexuality. The idea is that there are a lot of taboos that exist in our societies, be it Western culture or Indian or Oriental, whatever it is. The basic problem remains the same, that we do not have that expression of communication. I mean, we have 1,000 languages, but we still don't know how to tell them that we love them. We can tell them where they're going wrong, but we cannot tell them how, where they're right. No appreciation to them. And always this idea of giving a person that sort of toffee only when he or she has done a particular job. I think the other person starts to feel as if, kids specifically, they start to feel as if they are means to a particular end that they have to achieve. If you treat your children as an end in themselves, they would explore their potential to the most of their values. Otherwise, everybody is treating them in the same way, and then at the end they are treating the other people in the same way. In relationships also, like they are treating people as a means for a particular end, and that is how the relationship changes. The whole network of positivity or experiential bliss that you feel when you hug a person, or when you're feeling divine with even with communication, that hardly exists in the kind of life that teenagers are living in these days, because there is so much to it that they cannot understand. And specifically if it comes from your family, if the family is there which is not understanding them, then I guess we have lost the story. So expression, communication, and care should be there, and not a feeling of ownership, as Gagan, you mentioned. It's very important that they treat this as a positive emotion rather than feeling, oh my God, I can't tell this to my parents because this is what they would judge out of me. We have also done that as parents. Like, I'm sure like my parents would have also gone through the same kind of experiences, if not into that category, but at some time they would have experienced love, problems with their jobs, or anything, like, which make them as a human and not as gods. So where you have failed, it's not important to put that preachy thing to your kids that even they are going to fail. I've seen a lot of parents always telling their kids, nahi isse nahi hoga, ye nahi kar sakta, chhod de. Like, so you're putting that sort of energy to the other person's mind that your mind is not able to do a particular task, or you're not made for a particular thing. So if you're
You know,
able to accept it,
I would like to add here, Ankita, just 2 lines.
yeah,
As a parent, when my kids were growing up and when they were teenagers, as a parent, actually, I had to do nothing except to be a listener and to trust them to what they were talking. Instead of judging them to what I was listening, just plain listening to whatever they were talking would be my daily ritual. And I did not establish this I did not have a parenting book from the stores. This was my
yeah,
own sense of understanding that as a parent, when my kids go to sleep, I would just go into their rooms to say good night. And I would spend 2 to 3 minutes. My kids used to have a bunk bed, so they both would sleep in the same room when they're growing up. And at that time, I would just sit for 2-3 minutes and they would have things to tell. So me sitting there in the state of ready to listen made them talk. So my role was very less, and their role of talking kind of grew our relationship into something wonderful. And to whatever they talked, I trusted. And when I left the room, the next morning, I saw that we had developed more friendship. So friendship, trust, and listening
right. So
is
we need
all you
more
need.
parents like you.
Is all you need, actually. It works,
Right.
Listening works. More
Yeah,
than talking, listening works.
That's true.
listening word.
So big.
Yeah.
Very true.
Nithya, you want to add something?
I think a lot of points have been covered, and what I'd like to really add more than words is if you can just take a moment of silence. And because for me, the real thing that all of you are saying is it's really about tuning in. And so the people who are listening to this recording, as well as all of us, if you can just take maybe a minute or two, and it's called feel into the deepest pain, right? So feel into the deepest pain. Of course, your own experience as a teenager, I think we've all had that. Let's just try that right now. If you can just take a minute or two. Your eyes can be open or closed, whatever's comfortable. You can just sense into the deepest pain of this generation and these teenagers. When we do something like this. There's a beautiful Zen teaching, not knowing, bearing witness, loving action. So you start by not knowing. No matter, I may have worked with 1,000 teenagers, but when this teenager comes in front of me and I already decide, yeah, I know what's up with you, I'm not listening anymore. Because I've worked with 1,000 teenagers, I assume I know what's going on with you, but I don't, because this is a totally new person. So I've got to start with zero. Otherwise, they're going to smell the sense that, oh, you think you know, is it? They're going to smell it. And that's when they shut down. So not knowing. I don't know. I'm not the expert, but I'm here with you. And bearing witness. Bearing witness is exactly what we did right now. Tuning into the unique signature energy frequency of this individual or this group of individuals in front of you. And that's actually a kind of love. You're getting out of your head, you're getting into your heart, you're tuning into that energy field. And just those first two are enough to begin with. Not knowing, bearing witness, not knowing, bearing witness. And then by magic, it's almost like at some point, it just sprouts loving actions. And you just seem to know what to say and know what to do, but you can't force it to happen. It's like I've had some pots over here from another old house. There was nothing growing in those pots, but I just began putting water in them. And out of nowhere, some seed was sitting inside of it. It sprouted. And now it's become like by itself, the seed has come out from its own inside somewhere. So it's the potential, like we were saying earlier, if the question is there, the answer is there. If the suffering is there, the resolution of it is also there. But for that, we have to approach with more patience and more spaciousness. So if I look back at my teenage years, I mean, there are many things that happened, but the biggest healing that happened when someone in one way or the other told me, listen, pal, you're okay. Because there's a deep sense of I'm not okay, something's wrong, something's happening. Outwardly, I pretend to be. But when someone just says, listen, relax, it's okay.
Yeah.
You're fine. You're okay. And I think that's what, Sunita, you're doing as well in your own way. And that's what, Ankita, you're also pointing out. And so each one of us is just that sense of you're okay. You're going to be fine. It's okay. I love the example that Gagandepp said of using the Avengers. You got to use modern mythology because the Avengers is like a modern Mahabharata in a way. And you can talk with metaphors and with examples and role models that they can relate to. Then you got them. You start talking about Krishna and all. They're like, who is this? I don't understand. So I met a psychologist, and this is what she does. She asked exactly what Gagandeep was saying. What's your favorite novel? Who are the people you admire? What kind of music do you do? You listen to K-pop? Do you listen to Korean pop? What is it? And then she will use those teachers' teachings, analogies, metaphors to then communicate what she wants to communicate. And how beautiful that is. I guess that's what I wanted to say.
We have this habit of accumulating a lot of stuff.
Yes. This
We
guy,
need to go towards minimalism.
so this person bought the watermelon in rush, maybe got a very good deal. I don't know, at the train station, what happened.
Yeah.
We all do this, right? We get into something, but then we can't get out of it. I was jokingly telling Nithya that this is one of my next questions because this was third interview with Nithya, so I was really trying to please him and get his yes. So I said this to him and I said, this gola, this watermelon is like a spouse,
Oh
So
God.
पति या पत्नी गोला बन के अटक जाते हैं. That means they get stuck in your hands. You cannot throw it. Spend probably 200 rupees or maybe $10, I don't know. And you cannot put it in and you cannot throw it. You're just stuck with it. You have to praise and you have to worship that. Pamper or please or whatever you need to do. So you might have done things like this in life. If you record anything like this, have you done anything like these in life? And how do you?
You should gift it to somebody on the next station.
That's a good solution, yeah.
Hours away, so you'll be punished for 2 hours. You have to remember that. Do you have that much stamina in your hand? Okay. Have you done anything like this? And if anybody is in this situation, what do you tell them? Or how do you help them to get out of that situation? I have one, but it's not quite practical.
Watermelon reminds me of my past, experiences that I've had, and I don't want to let go of them. So it's something which, like, when you're showing this picture to me, all I get reminded of all the things that I thought, you know, uh, that I keep thinking, and I need to undo all of that. So it's like unlearning so many things. So it's a baggage actually, which I try to keep it with myself, thinking that there's this thing about this world which I feel it's like we keep sympathizing about our situations, even if it's a bad mood or anything. Like we'll keep sympathizing. Like if I'll ask you how was your day, and you said, oh, my day was like this. This is what happened, and I would have so much to tell you. I'll start telling you my stories, and I would not listen to yours because there is so much. There is so much to this world. that we want to share. So this watermelon, if it's your past or all the experiences that you're taking and sympathizing with, I think you need to share them off. That's my learning to that.
Sunita, go ahead.
Yeah, so, after I see this picture, first, of course, I laughed that it's a funny thing. But at the same time, I see myself in it and I see everyone in it. Each one of us is this picture. Each one of us is holding the watermelon. And to me, the heavy weight of the watermelon is every thought that we are producing. And honestly, we all do this all the time. We are having so many thoughts in our mind which weigh and which outweigh us and which also weigh us down. So every time thoughts come, and I have learned endlessly from Nithya's teachings. Nithya, thank you. Gratified, very gratified for this. And of course, my own journey of learning yoga, teaching yoga, sharing Yoga Sutra study has taught me how to do cleaning, clearing, cleansing on an everyday basis. So everyone has a watermelon in their hand right now. And sometimes we know the weight of it and sometimes we don't, because the weight is sitting in the head, and head we put on, when we sleep, the head goes on the floor. So all the weight is put on the floor. But then when we get up again, it's still again, we are holding it back. So yeah, this picture is important in two ways. One, it's funny, and two, it has a meaning to it. So the deep meaning that I get it, keep working on yourself so that you never have to hold these kind of watermelons in your life every day. Keep working every day. Put them down, put them away, or eat them. I would eat them. I would eat them somehow, bite into them and eat them. Yeah.
I have two solutions. One is think about nature. If you drop the watermelon, it will blast into pieces and the seeds will sow in, and there will be green plants and watermelons one day. or, or else, just hold the watermelon as long as you can and hope that it will stop suddenly. Somebody will pull the chain and your arms will get good exercise, both as yoga teacher and uh, a pro environment person. That is my solution. Anything, Nithya?
I mean, I had posted this picture on my WhatsApp group, so I got a lot of answers. Someone said, why are you holding it? Put a dupatta and tie it up and wait for the station. Imagine we have to hold it the whole time. Or somebody else said, while you're holding it, somebody can cut it. Or somebody said, pass it down the line to the next window, and with little collaboration, it will come to the door, and then you can get it inside.
Can't come to the door, yaar. मैंने सोचा वो. I thought that. See, between the window and the door, there's a lot of gap. वो नहीं है solution. Dupatta is a good one.
dupatta.
Gagandeep ji.
Yeah, I look at it as a management term, which is called the concept of sunk cost, that my baby syndrome, that essentially we end up making some decisions which were strategically wrong. But that my baby syndrome is that our egos, our prides, our prejudice are so weighed in our own heart, in our inflated way of living, that we do not accept that our decisions could have probably been flawed and then keep on clinging to them. This probably is one of the greatest value destructors in the CXOC suits, where we offer these corporate trainings and coaches. So this picture was very interesting when you shared it with me about a couple of weeks back or a week back, whenever it was. And my thought over here was to use collaboration from a different sense. But I, as a solution, just thought, which I think maybe Nithya ji just mentioned, that have another person bring the resources. The hare and tortoise story, the old story goes that the hare actually dozed off, was drowsy, and then behaved lousy and just lost. But the second story goes that the hare decided he had to fight back, and he won the next time. But the story goes, tortoise was smarter. He invited for a third race, and this time he brought a track where there was a huge river in between. So hare was stuck up, and the tortoise won. The third time, probably they decided that then let us collaborate and let us collectively win, and that's when they were able to cross all the hurdles and do the best. So the solution, of course, if at all we are talking about such kind of a simile, is that you are not blessed with all the best ideas alone, and your solutions are not necessarily invincible or infallible. So in this situation, have somebody cut it and then give half to him or her and then share it together as a collaboration and get done with it. The decision was wrong, don't throw in good money after bad money, as they say in the corporate terminology.
Yeah, yeah. So hare would sit on the tortoise when they have to cross the river. That's how it goes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When the flat track comes where you need, then the hare would lift the tortoise and then they would go faster. So together, they went much further and much faster as a team. So it's like global optima versus local optima. When we try to let our egos become so inflated that they become our barriers, we actually create hindrances in our own journey. But when we decided to give in and welcome the thoughts of others, we sort of open up and create a bigger solution, a larger pie, which is both or more people you're collaborating with. So collaborate and lower down your ego guards. This is my thought for this one.
Yeah. Okay. Last question that I have is for the senior citizens. My mom is in India and I'm here. We want to communicate every day, but since the smartphones have come, it has become a new thing, new challenge for her to communicate. I feel like that is there with everybody around, right? We all have this newness, and whereas when you give the smartphone to a year-old boy or girl and little baby, they are figuring out. 2-year old knows how to turn on YouTube and say Peppa Pig and turn on the video on her own or on his own. I don't know if you notice that this, but then they are quickly getting on the technology, whereas the older generation is really struggling. If you anticipate this or not, I don't know, but then I anticipate this. In future, there will be more newer technology that we are unable to acclimate to, right? This is an ongoing challenge. This is an ongoing thing. Our older generation, our parents are not able to really communicate with us and keep up with us, catch up with us, how we are going, the pace at which we are going. It's exponential growth. The technology is growing exponentially. The right word is exponential. Where do you see the balance? How do you help your parents and grandparents come up to your level and communicate? Or else, what do you think is a way out for this? Instead of making them feel out of place, how can we make them feel that they are with us and we can do something?
Nalini, can I add something to this one?
Please, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not that they're not able to. It's just that they don't have anybody to teach them. I mean, they definitely would want to learn. It's just that their connections. I mean, I've seen parents begging their children to spend some time and teach them, how to learn the laptop, and they're like, we don't have time. And the parents, it's not just for technology. They're begging them to come downstairs and meet, their grandparents or relatives, whosoever they have come to their place. But the kids would just not go. They would just want to keep them isolated in their rooms, playing with their, iPhone or video games or online games. So the thing is that we have stopped respecting, having that sort of respect for our elders, because now there are so many other enticing things to do. So it's not just technology. I mean, you can learn, definitely. You can learn technology. You can also go and do this. But the idea is to nurture your kids in a way, because I see a lot of parents, like while I'm traveling in the planes or trains or buses, I see parents giving their children iPads, their phones. Okay, चलो, मेरे पास time नहीं है, तुम इसके साथ खेल लो. So if that is the idea with what you're giving to your children, they are also, they're going to find their world in that thing, and then they're not going to have that sort of connection with you.
Yeah.
So I think the problem doesn't lie with the technology, but it lies with the way it is being handled, and the way children or teenagers or whosoever, the kids, they're not getting back to their parents with the same sort of energy as their parents they have for their kids. Like if I ask my mom कि माँ एक आलू की पराठी बनाओ यार, अभी बहुत भूख लगी है, मैं 12 बजे भी बोलूंगी. She, even if she would be in a half sleep, she would just get up and eat that for us. So it's like, we need to have the sort of connect with our parents, and we should feel blessed that we have our parents. वो एक बार कोई चला गया इंसान तो उसको बाद में miss करना. Oh my God, this is my parents' anniversary, I miss them. That's not the idea. Idea is to be with them when they are alive. So we need to be more considerate with them and teach them the things that we know we are better at.
we are all using Zoom, but there are so many people who are not able to get on Zoom. This is something that I noticed. It's not easy for that generation to understand this technology and get on it. It's not easy. It's not possible, as Ankita said. We need really a lot of patience to teach them. They are not going to get it in 1 or 2 goes, because they are afraid of touching the little equipment, and maybe they think that it will go bad. For some reason they think that what if it goes bad. That is there, that fear is there in us. I've seen that. I asked my mom, why do you not play with it? Kids just play with it, and that's why they get it. Don't be afraid, it will not break. Nothing will happen to it. Just try it out and learn maybe 2 or 3 or 4 times, and it will happen. Yeah, we need a little bit of patience to teach them, maybe multiple times, right? Anyone? Gagandeep ji?
You're muted. You're mute. We can't hear you.
Gagandeep ji, you're muted.
Okay. So I'm at the verge of trying to publish my book called Journey from 4 lakh to 4 crore in 10 years. It's essentially addressed at IIM aspirants, as I said, the early corporates whom I focus on. So it's a thick book, pretty heavy and pretty contextually oriented as far as the message to the specific niche segment is concerned. But then the last chapter is about the journey from senior management to top management. And there I talk about 7 steps. And then at the last few pages, I talk about rule 0. And for me, that rule 0 is, which I have mentioned in the book, is called respect your parents. In that single act of giving unalloyed, devoted, dedicated attention to your parents above everything else, you actually serve the entire purpose of human creation, because at the end of the day, if we look at it more emotionally and with a certain amount of passion, they are our founders, they are our creators, so we owe it to them. But probably much beyond that, we owe that to our children and to our society, because whatever we are going to do to our parents today is something that's eventually going to come back to us through our children. That's the second thing. And the bigger thing is this role play of a demonstrated behavior which we have with our parents is what we eventually become. And when our conduct with parents is based on the virtues of 5H, which is essentially being very humble, being very honest, being very humorous in that sense, being helpful, and being very hardworking in our endeavors. These 5H are the perfect draft factory, a model factory where we are prepared to face the society. So my simple thought on parenting is that you have to consider your life to have these 3 broad zones: the zone of your family, which includes your wife and children, your professional universe, and the universe of your parents. And then try to make sure that you are giving a certain proportion of time to them every day, unfailingly. So I train the corporate leaders on a model which is called the Cosmos framework, and it's not got to do with the so-called astrophysics or any kind of philosophical orientation, but it's a very corporate term which says that balance your life into 2 zones, personal and professional. And in each of them, find 4 subzones where you can balance your, say, 16 working hours every day, excluding the sleep time. And one of them needs to be for parents. So 2 hours a day for parents will actually make your cycle of life complete. Otherwise, it will be going to be something like, I don't know if you have heard the term called Zeigarnik Effect, which says that it was designed by a Russian philosopher in 1927. And it simply says that the pressure of unfulfilled, strong missions acts as a constant weight on your soul as long as you're alive. I mean, that's one of the interpretations of this concept. So that moral, social, ethical, love-based pressure, it comes on you at the lament, at the melancholy of not having done for parents that you could have, remains on your shoulders throughout and is a drag on your very existence. So do it, as Sunita ji said, as Ankita said, before one of them is gone. That's my thought on that, ma'am.
Also, I think just to add on to that, I think we assume a lot of things. Like parents also assume a lot of things for their kids, what they're doing, and kids also assume a lot of things for what their parent might be thinking about them. So assuming it gives you a lot of stories which don't even exist. So it's very important that you start telling them what you're feeling, even if there's a miscommunication or anything which it has gone wrong. It's very important that you tell them, yeah, this is what you're feeling about them regarding that particular issue. Talking about that thing after 10 days or 10 weeks or after years and not being able to hug your own mother and father, it's a very unfortunate feeling. Like I've seen people at the age of 40 and 50 who are not able to, communicate this kind of gesture to their parents. Or even like right now, like at the age of 28, 30, when they're settled and they decide to go in separate their ways, they have assumptions for their parents. Oh, you did. They have grudges. So it's very important to sit down and talk. The link is about communication as much it is about if you are introspecting about yourself, it's also important that you hear the other's stories as well. And probably your issues can get resolved and solved if you try and talk to your parents.
Sunita, you're saying something.
Something I saw you were going to say something before Ankita said. Go ahead.
For me?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yes, you.
I
We are
was-
hitting that song. Who me? Yes, you couldn't be. Then who?
I was not going to say anything.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm enjoying listening to all of you. And I think not everything has to be said in 4 different ways. I think it's most of the important points have been covered. And to really tune in,
Yeah.
it
So
becomes, I'm also having empathy for the listener because they're getting very good information, but too much of even the best information gets heavy. So I think some very excellent points have come from Ankita and from Gagandepp and from you, Sunita. So I would just say again, I would come back to the point I made even with the teenagers, is that just empathize, tune in, have a little space in your life, because this is not something you have to get from a book. Your inner being is going to tell you.
Yeah.
If you just give a little space, you'll start feeling the guilt that, oh, I'm not being with my parents, I'm on my phone all the time. If you really tune in, you know what to do. But just like you were saying with your kids, Sunita, that you just listen to them.
Yeah.
And so if you had that intelligence as a mom to just listen to them, then we as kids also have a basic intelligence that let me call my mom, let me be there with my parents. And I think to trust that intuitive guidance which comes from just a little spaciousness in your life.
Yeah, and in fact, I have something very beautiful to share today. So my dad and my mom live in India, Dehradun, and for every birthday of all of us, we have 4 children, they go to the Gurudwara. I was also married in a Gurudwara. So my father and my mother will always go to some mandir or on that day just to, wish us, bless us. And we kids know it very well, and we've been living far apart. So today my dad was actually very sick. For the last few weeks, he's been running sick. He's old and sick now. But this morning, which was, his evening, my morning, my brother took him to the Gurdwara, reminding him that it was my birthday, and he knows it very well in him. But he was so weak, yet he went and walked to the Gurdwara, prayed, and came back. And then he wished me on, we had a FaceTime call this morning. So coming back to Nithya's point, no technology can match the system that is inbuilt. Our entire framework of system is a universe. How can you duplicate a universe? Technology is giving us the best that we already have, but it is giving us more on our fingers. Without technology, we can use our heart, but in technology, you don't need the heart. So when my dad went to the Gurdwara in the state that he was, I felt extremely, extremely blessed. I mean, and what connection did I have? I don't talk to him every day, and we don't Zoom or we don't even FaceTime every day, because all they like is just one phone call, a regular phone call. My dad only likes a flip phone. He'll tell me, stop telling me about gadgets. You call me on my flip phone and I'll pick up. He'll tell me, don't even drop me a message. I don't want to read your messages. My eyes are too weak. So I think parents are always, always connected. Like even Ankita said, your mom will wake up in the middle of the night and do things for you. And that energy has gone into each one of the people that are living in, in family structure. So you cannot miss that. That's a better energy than what we're using these days. No need to teach them, I would think. They don't need to learn. They already know, I would say.
So all my empathy to all the listeners who stayed this long. And actually, I want to say something different here. It could be a 1.5 hour talk, but then people watch 3-hour Indian movies. on 2-hour Hollywood movies and back-to-back shows on TV, Ekta Kapoor serials in India. I think ours gives our session will give more information than those. So I think this is more value-based than that. And thank you for your time, all of you. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nalini. Thank you. Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you so much, Nalini. Thanks a lot.
Bye.